Back to another video. In this video, we'll talk about the role of breath work in building muscle mass. This is a concept that everyone needs to be aware of, familiar with, because when you're on your journey for movement, it's going to be key that you define where your muscles are. How do you feel your muscles? What capacity does your muscles have? So in this video, we'll discuss more about that. But I want to always set the framework of how we actually get to this point. Before we talk about what breathwork is, what the role is, and then eventually to your muscle mass, we want to talk about what alpha is. Every single one of you to exist today needed to have ancestors that survived the elements, whatever the elements might be, famine, wars, droughts, etc., right? There's a lot of things that happened in the past, but for you to come to this point, you have to work for it. And for you to work for it, you're here. But in the context of alpha, we break it down into three fundamental cores: movement, metabolism, mindset. Movement, metabolism, mindset. And when you factor that all in and you obsess over these three words, you start realizing, where is your status, right? What is a status update for your movement, status update for your metabolism, status update for your mindset? But I've already recorded a whole series on metabolism and mindset, so go ahead and take a look at the feed before. But today's video, we want to double click on movement, specifically breath work, and how it's going to be integral for you to build muscle mass. So with that being said, guys, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what is breath work. How do you actually breathe? Most people don't think about it. When we actually do breathe, we're normally breathing from the top of our lungs, very shallow breathing. I request you or recommend, give it a try. Take a deep breath in, see how you feel. I'm going to exaggerate it, and I'm going to let it go. When I did it, I did the same exact thing you probably did, which is I was breathing from the top of my lungs, and it's very shallow breathing. But the unfortunate reality is it's only like maybe 30%, maximum 40% of your total capacity that you can actually breathe in. So we're not optimizing our breath. We're not leveraging the lower lobes, which has so much more potential for taking in oxygen from the environment and then putting it into your blood. So what I want to do with you is actually do something called a diaphragmatic breathing. Every one of you might know different types of breathing. I'm just going to stick with the physiological ones that really make sense, which is going to be the diaphragmatic breathing. And the way we're going to get that started is we're going to put our right hand on our heart, left hand on our belly, and we're going to go ahead and expand the belly, rise the chest, expand the belly, rise the chest. We'll do 5 of these, but I want to show you one just for context, so me and you can do it together. So go ahead and stand, sit, whatever you feel comfortable doing, and we want to exaggerate. So we want to expand the belly, rise the chest. So let's go ahead and get started with 1. All right, 1. Let's do another 1. Expand the belly, rise the chest, let it go. All right, so that's going to be how we're going to do the breaths. We're going to do 5 of these, and at the 5th one, just go ahead and relax, and we'll come back right after that. So right hand on our heart, left hand on our belly. So breathe from the belly. 2. 3. 4, last one. 5. How do you feel? See, I naturally get calmed down because what happens is my mind is going so fast, so much into the future that I forget about the present moment. And when I do breath work very consciously, it brings me to now. It makes me realize there's a tree in front of me. It makes me realize there's people here. It makes me appreciate who I am. Hopefully you did as well. Hopefully you felt a little bit of exaggeration in how you normally breathe. Now, for many of you, you might feel a little tired. You might feel a little yawning, sleepy. You might be laughing. You might be crying. What happens is when you activate so many parts of your body in that deep, profound breath, you activate things. You activate certain pockets where we've trapped certain emotions. And so if you did feel sleepy or tired, that just means you got knocked out from so much oxygen coming to you. If you start laughing, if you start smiling or start crying, you've tapped into certain parts of your body that required you to just sort of unleash it, which you probably did, which is great. Now, understanding that, to us, when we talk about basic breath work, we're talking about that exact breathing. We're talking about a diaphragmatic breathing. There's this huge sheet of muscle, it's like a dome-shaped muscle that's right underneath your lungs, and it encapsulates all of your guts and organs and everything from the middle. So when you're doing a belly breath, you're expanding the belly, so you're allowing the diaphragm to be pushed down, which allows your lungs to fully expand. And then when you let it go, your lungs go ahead and collapses, and your diaphragm relaxes, so now you're able to bring back your internal organs back into your belly. See, when you see me, if you were to see me topless with my abs, you know, I'm just flexing my abs so that's pushing all the guts in. But if I were to profoundly breathe, I can exaggerate the belly, and then I can go ahead and also unexaggerate the belly as well. So now let's tie it into, well, before we tie it in, let's talk about why are we even going to do this? Like, why don't we just let our, you know, autonomic response take over, where we don't think too much about it and we just go ahead and breathe? The reason is, like I said before, when you're not thinking about it, you're more than likely doing shallow breaths. You're getting not the optimal amount of oxygen you can actually put inside your body. And so as a result of that, what ends up happening is you're going to need other sources of energy that's going to give you that energy, which is, you can definitely do it, but it's not a long-term strategy for you to get the benefits you're looking for. So what we want to do is when we do that type of breath work, we hyperoxygenate ourselves. So, you know, again, it goes through your nose, goes down your trachea, goes to your lungs, and then eventually it not dissipates, but it transfuses to the blood system. And then once it goes to the blood system, then you do blood flow. And blood flow is something we talk about in other videos, but in this situation, we're not thinking about that. We want to focus our attention and energy on getting the amount of energy that we need within our body. Right, so now let's talk about muscle mass. Why is it important when you're trying to build muscle mass that you do proper breath work? And I want to give you my journey, right? Because that's the fundamental thing that I went after when I was thinking about how do you leverage your breath for muscle building. And the way we were going to think about this is, let's take out that physiology that we were talking about before, which was, you know, we go ahead and take that oxygen in, we leverage it into our blood system. But when it goes into our blood system, it has to traverse to all the different sites. You know, there are certain areas of your body, certain organs that require a lot of oxygen. But in the context of muscle building, that oxygen molecule is going near the muscle fibers. And it then, guess what? It then does something called aerobic respiration. Every cell has a capacity to do two types of respiration: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration basically means that it's using oxygen to go ahead and create energy. And then you have anaerobic respiration, which is essentially when there's no oxygen, how does your body use fuel for energy? Think of your sugars, think of the fats, think of protein, think of anything that's outside of oxygen as anaerobic. But for us to really benefit, we want to do aerobic respiration, which is why we're talking about breath work, which is why it's so fundamental. Something that everyone does not consider or think about is the fact that without 3 minutes of oxygen, so 3 minutes to 5 minutes, depending on who you are, without oxygen, you die, right? Without that ability for you to take it in, we take it for granted, but we realize the importance when we're like underneath the water or we're in a room where we feel suffocated. That's where it really truly plays in. But now in this case, now that we do have the oxygen, we're taking it in, we're breathing more, we're hyperoxygenating our body, meaning we're having a surplus of oxygen within ourselves, which allows us to do a few different things. Muscle building, I would probably break it into a few different pieces for it to make sense for you. Natural muscle building is, okay, you have your muscle, you exert some force on it, and you realize that if you can pick it up, so let's just say you start off with 5 pounds, you go to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, as you keep going, it gets harder and harder. That's telling you that how much energy needs to be exerted by that muscle for you to lift it up. Now, when you get to a point where it's so high of a requirement, your body can't do anything else. So you need to be able to do something called progressive overload for you to overload your system for it to stimulate growth. Once you stimulate growth, guess what? That's when the machinery, the cellular machinery within each muscle fiber starts getting activated and needs that aerobic respiration, needs that anaerobic respiration for you to go ahead and build new fibers on top of whatever it is. You're not building new cells. What you're doing is you're building fibers that the cells will control. And for you to do that, you have to rip the fibers. So the key thing to understand here is before you do the lift, it would make sense for you to have the energy for you to do the lift. But let's just say you don't have the energy. What you want to do is you want to fail. You want to hold that weight, whatever exercise you're doing, whether it's a bench press or you do a bicep curl, whatever the activity is, you want to hold it till failure, because that failure will activate certain parts of your brain, be like, hey, we're not capable of doing this, but we want to be able to do this. So let's stimulate the stem cells, let's stimulate all the growth factors, the satellite cells, et cetera, for you to be able to go ahead and build more muscle. So before you do the activity, you want to do the breath work. When you do the breath work, you're hyperoxygenating the body. When you hyperoxygenate the body, you're able to actually generate more power, because you're giving the muscles more energy than it normally gets, because you're doing the proper breath work. Now, once you do that lift and you go to failure, now your muscle fibers are like, hey, this is more than normal, more than what you've been experiencing for the last few weeks, last few months, whatever it is. And so now your muscle is going to tear. You want those micro tears, because that tear signals, the satellite cells signals whoever that needs to be active within your body to go ahead and send the recovery mechanism, send the nutrients. The blood flow will get shunted to that area, so you can actually go ahead and rejuvenate yourself at a faster rate. The oxygen is your primer, because what happens is eventually, once you do this enough times, the progressive overload, you start creating more mitochondria. As we talked about before, oxygen is used by mitochondria to make ATP, but what happens is when you have certain amount of stimulus at all given times, it's going to go ahead and be like, hey, we actually need more energy at a normal requirement. It has become our normal. So for us to do that, we go ahead and clone more mitochondria, or replicate more mitochondria, so you can have that energy that you need when you're actually working out, which is the beauty, right? So wrap it all up. You do the breath work. First, you learn how to breathe. First, you learn the difference between conscious breathing and unconscious breathing. Once you understand what conscious breathing is, then you realize is you want to apply this every time you go ahead and do your activity. Go through progressive overload, fail, and then when you come back, what's going to happen is the next time around, your recovery is faster, and over time, you'll build enough mitochondria to build more muscle mass. That's the key right here, guys. How do we connect movement with breath work to your muscles? And that's the secret sauce. So if you stay till the end, I appreciate you. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of it. I take a little bit of time because I want to set the baseline. I want these videos where you can watch it independently, but also if you've been watching the other videos, it all ties in together, because what I realize, what benefits me, is repetition is the key to success. And the more you hear it, the more you do it, the more you act upon it, the better it'll be for you. With that being said, guys, if you found any value in this video, definitely give me a like, letting me know you liked the video. If you disliked the video, give me a dislike, letting me know why in the comments below. What I really love to see is actually you guys subscribe to the channel. That lets me know how you feel about the content, you got value out of it, and from there, it also gives me value that I can provide more value to you. With that, I'm Shaquille with Alpha. Hopefully, we can help you optimize yourself to your genetic potential. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.